Good afternoon and welcome to Performance at St. Paul's. My name is Tim Peterson and I am the Director of Music and Organist at St. Paul's Episcopal Church here in Key West. During these novel times when we don't get to see each other or greet each other or share the peace or pray with each other, it is in these times that I would like to share with you some of the history of psalmody and hymnody in the Episcopal Church. This isn't meant to be a history lesson. I'm not a historian, nor a thesis. I'm not a writer, but just some general information which might make it interesting to you the next time we all get together on a Sunday morning. It was the history of the church that the Mass was sung each Sunday, the ordinary parts, the Kyrie, the Gloria, the Credo, the Sanctus, the Agnus Dei. But they were not sung by the parishioners, but of a professional choir. Sure, there was some responsorial responsibilities of the congregation, but for the most part, it was a silent one. This was about to end. With the Protestant Reformation of the 16th century came the thrust to involve all worshipers, not just the clergy, in the music of worship. The German-speaking Lutherans developed the tradition of hymnody, much of what we see actually in the 1982 hymn book of the Episcopal Church, free melodies with four-part harmonies and freely composed religious text to fit a specific meter. Encouraged by Martin Luther and the start of the Reformation, 1517, music was to bring passion and populism to this cause. Many hymns were written during this time, led by the greatest of these composers, Johann Sebastian Bach, 1585-1650. John Calvin, Luther's successor, that the Reformed movement in 1541 is when he was the successor and in charge of all this. He led a very unemotional approach to faith. Luther encouraged the use of other instruments in the church, especially the organ, whereas Calvinism did allow music, but no instruments were to be involved. Let's begin with the Church of England. Archbishop Cranmer, and he was Archbishop 1532-1534, sided with the Calvinistic approach to worship and music. Music in the church should be restrictive to paraphrases of the Psalms, not poetic texts. Even though hymns flourished in the German Lutheran Church, singing of poetic text was not an integral part of the Anglican order of service until the 19th century. The Oxford movement, around 1839, was fueled to revive Catholic liturgical practices in the Anglican churches. Music such as intoning the versicles or short petitions or prayers, and the chanting of the Psalms. Finally, let's move to America. Psalm singing in America, the first published Psalter, the whole book of Psalms faithfully translated into English meter, was produced by the Puritans of Massachusetts around 1640. It is known as the Bay Psalm Book, the first book to be printed in English-speaking North America. It did not include music, but recommended the use of tunes found in some of the finest English psalmody of the day. 1651 edition, just another 10, 11 years later, finally brought in some of the words and some of the music published in the book. While earlier psalters had used a variety of metrical patterns for the psalm settings, the Bay Psalm Book represented a general reversion to the three standard forms: Anglican chant, where we have long tones being sung and a few chord changes at the end, and I will show you an example of that. The Genevan Psalter, which was metrically rhythmic, and then the plain chant, singing of a single unaccompanied melodic line. Congregational singing in New England especially in isolated communities, continued to deteriorate. Throughout the 17th century and into the 18th century, people no longer knew how to read music. The society became more common, if you will. And the first wave of immigrants from England to Plymouth and Bay colonies and to Connecticut had included people of education and musical background. That became less and less. Many could not read, much less read music, and psalm books often lacked any musical notation. The stream of new immigrants for religious reasons, who might have brought with them the necessary skills, dried up, and the Puritan and independent influence came to power in England with the protectorate of Oliver Cromwell in the mid-1600s. In many parishes then, singing reached a low point. The number of psalm tunes known to a typical congregation was greatly reduced and confined to the simplest of meters. The psalm tunes, originally vigorous, were slowed by giving all their notes equal length, supposedly interests of solemnity. I'll give you an example of that as well. Because people could no longer read music, they diaconing of the psalms. In other words, the leader or the deacon or the cantor would read or sing a line of text, and then the people would repeat it. And then he would sing the text of the psalm, and the congregation would repeat this refrain, if you will. I'll give you an example of that. But it was time for a change. The late 17th century ushered in several hymn tune favorites, such as Hanover, O worship the King, St. Anne, O God, our help in ages past. Poetic paraphrases of biblical psalms were increasingly being written. Some of them, Psalm 90, Psalm 98, O God, our help was Psalm 90, Joy to the World, based on Psalm 98, The Church is One Foundation, based on Psalm 101, The Lord's my shepherd, I'll not want, Psalm 23, and many, many more. Actually, a list I was easily able to find on the internet that had all the psalms with reference to hymns written. Let me give you some examples of how these psalms would work in the early church. We might hear this from the English Psalter that carried over to the Anglican Church in America for the psalms. Here's one I just quickly wrote this morning. It may sound similar or familiar to you because it has a similar mode of how the psalm was to be sung. This is based on Psalm 23. It's the first performance ever, so please apologize. I apologize to you in advance if I have some mistakes. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures and leads me beside still waters. He revives my soul and guides me along the right pathways for his name's sake. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You spread a table before me in the presence of those who trouble me. You have anointed my head with oil, and my cup is running over. Surely your goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. That's something that the whole congregation would sing. And as we had less ability to read music, much less read words, we went to something like this. This kind of is our history at St. Paul's, what we do, from the Portland Psalter, where the cantor would lead a refrain, sing it through once, have the congregation respond and refrain with us as a congregation, and then he would sing verses and invite the refrain to be brought back again. Here it is. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not be in want. And then the congregation is invited to sing with us. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not be in want. And then he would sing a verse. He make me lie down in green pastures, and leads me beside still waters. He revives my soul, and guides me along right pathways for his name's sake. Back to the refrain. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not be in want. And we finish off the psalm in that fashion. We progress from there to how do we set these words to rhythm in a psalm. We had to make it somewhat metrical or metered so that it would all fit appropriately from verse to verse, stanza to stanza in a hymn. So this is one that we all know well, and there are several tunes that were set. This one is called Brother James' Air. The Lord's my shepherd, I'll not want, he makes me down to lie. In pastures green he leadeth me, the quiet waters by. He leadeth me, the quiet waters by. So we progress so far that the congregation again then can read music, more importantly they can read words, and then we have set so much of this text paraphrased, and then other just new religious text to fit a hymn tune or a melody that has been composed. I picked just a couple of my favorite psalms that are set to music, and I'm going to share just a couple of them with you now. In the English or the American Episcopal hymnal from 1982, Love Divine, O Love Excelling, and this is based on portions of Psalm 103, and we probably know this tune, and you can sing it with me. This is 657 in the hymnal. 657. Love divine, or love excelling, joy of heart to earth come down. Fix in us thy humble dwelling, all the faithful mercies crown. Jesus, thou art all compassion, pure, unbounded love thou art. Visit us with thy salvation, enter every trembling heart. Another one that we know so well that has been in our tradition of singing for so many years is number 73. It's an Advent tune that's sung to the tune called Saint Stephen, but the King shall come when morning dawns. This is number 73 in the 1982 hymnal. The King shall come when morning dawns, and light triumphant breaks, whose beauty gives the eastern hill, and life to joy awakes. These are the tunes that I've sung for years and mean so much to me. The purpose of psalm singing is to be intentional with text, to reflect on the words that then is a reflection and a statement of our faith. I hope this brings something to you today in these turbulent times, and tune in next week again, Thursday at noon, as we continue this journey, exploring psalms and hymns of our faith. Until then, May the peace of the Lord be with you.